Top Gun Maverick, people have been asking for a sequel for years and years.
34.
34 years.
It's been
People have been
34
saying,
years since I made
and
the last
everybody,
time, right here
yeah.
in San Diego.
Top Gun was supposed to be just another military action movie. Instead, it became one of the most influential films ever made. But behind the fighter jets and the unforgettable soundtrack is a story most fans have never heard. Tom Cruise turned down Maverick more than once. A tragic accident during production changed the movie forever, and several moments that audiences assumed were carefully planned happened completely by accident. What looked like Hollywood's coolest production turned out to be chaotic and risky. These are the 10 shocking facts behind Top Gun, the movie that transformed Tom Cruise into a superstar and created a cultural phenomenon that still hasn't faded nearly 4 decades later. Tom Cruise refused the role multiple times. The man who became inseparable from Maverick in the cultural imagination did not want to be Maverick at all when producers first approached the project. Tom Cruise was offered the role of Pete Mitchell during the early development of Top Gun and turned it down. The offer came back again. Cruise turned it down again. A film about naval aviators built around procedure, flight school competition, and military camaraderie did not immediately read like the vehicle for the specific career momentum Cruise was building in the mid-1980s. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer recognized that no amount of script conversation was going to change that calculation. The approach needed to be direct and physical. Bruckheimer arranged for Cruise to fly with the United States Navy Blue Angels demonstration team, strapping Cruise into the back seat of an F-18 for a flight that included sustained 5G maneuvers, barrel rolls, and enough aerial disorientation to make the ground look optional. Cruise was visibly shaken when the plane landed. After a few minutes on the tarmac, Bruckheimer asked if the role was of interest now. Cruise said yes. Separately, the role of Charlie, the civilian instructor played by Kelly McGillis, was originally offered to Ali Sheedy, who had appeared in The Breakfast Club and War Games and had genuine commercial momentum at that point in her career. Sheedy turned it down, reportedly asking the producers who would want to watch Tom Cruise flying around in an airplane. The film went on to earn $357 million worldwide and become the highest-grossing domestic release of 1986. Sheedy's question answered itself before the year was over. The whole film started with a magazine article. Top Gun did not begin with a screenplay. It began with an article in California magazine. In May 1983, writer Ehud Yonah published a piece titled Top Guns, profiling real Navy aviators training at Naval Air Station Miramar, the facility known inside naval aviation as Fighter Town, USA, located just outside San Diego. Yonah followed 2 active pilots through the 5-week Top Gun training program, capturing the competition, the physical intensity, and the specific atmosphere of men flying supersonic aircraft at the limits of what those machines and bodies could handle. The photographs accompanying the article, shot by Lieutenant Commander Charles Heatley, showed F-14 Tomcats slashing through desert and ocean air in ways that translated immediately as cinematic. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer acquired the film rights within 2 months. Hollywood resisted the concept. David Cronenberg said no. John Carpenter said no. Multiple screenwriters passed. A film about naval aviators did not strike development executives as a guaranteed commercial event. Eventually, screenwriters Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. were brought in, with Epps attending declassified sessions at Miramar and flying in an actual F-14 to understand the physical experience the film needed to convey. The connection to Yonah's article remained legally significant decades later. In 2022, Yonah's widow and son sued Paramount over Top Gun. Maverick, arguing the sequel drew from the original article rather than the first film. Paramount countered that the sequel was built on the original movie, not the journalism. The court sided with Paramount. The cinematic universe that Yonah's journalism had started had grown large enough to stand independently of the article that sparked it. Renting real jets costs more than 10% of the entire budget. Top Gun was made on a $15 million budget. The Navy charged 7,000 SIS $100 per flight hour per F-14 Tomcat. By the time the principal aerial photography was complete, the production had paid the Pentagon approximately $1.8 million. On a $15 million budget, more than $1 in every $10 went directly to the United States military. The arrangement covered aircraft access, fuel, pilots, the use of Miramar's training facilities, and flight time on multiple aircraft carriers, including the USS Enterprise. For less than the purchase price of a single F-14, which cost the government approximately $38 million each, the production gained access to an entire operational fleet in real environments. Real launches, real carrier landings. The real afterburner runs above the actual ocean with the actual sky. Computer-generated imagery in 1986 could not have approximated any of that credibly. The alternative to paying the Navy was not an inferior version of the same shots. The alternative was no shots at all. The technology simply did not exist to manufacture convincing aerial footage of that scale and dynamism. Every frame of a real jet banking against a real horizon was irreplaceable. Director Tony Scott pushed the budget further during filming aboard the USS Enterprise when the afternoon light hit the flight deck at an angle that turned everything golden and perfect. The ship turned and the light disappeared. Scott asked the captain to change the carrier's heading to recapture the shot. The Navy's answer arrived with a price tag of $25,000 for the estimated fuel and operational costs of the course change. Scott wrote the check from personal funds. The resulting footage of jets moving through amber haze with crew silhouetted against the horizon appeared in the finished film and is among the most visually referenced sequences in the movie. Despite all that real hardware, the most intense flying footage in the movie was filmed nowhere near an actual jet. The most intense cockpit moments were shot in a Burbank hangar. Every close-up of sweat, strain, and focused eyes in the Top Gun cockpit sequences feels like it belongs 30,000 feet in the air. Most of it was filmed in a hangar behind Burbank Airport. Tony Scott did send the cast up in real Navy jets. The backseat flights gave the actors direct experience of genuine G-forces. The specific physical compression and tunnel vision of high-speed aerial maneuvering. The problem was audio. Jet engine noise and wind at speed made every recorded dialogue line completely unusable, even with specialized microphones designed for exactly that situation. The solution required separating the physical experience from the filmed performance. The production built a meticulously detailed F-14 cockpit replica and mounted it on a hydraulic gimbal platform inside the hangar. Rear projection screens displayed actual aerial footage of sky and horizon line behind the cockpit glass. The platform tilted, shook, and dropped to simulate banking, climbing, and high-G maneuvers. Crew members stationed just out of frame sprayed water on the actors to simulate sweat, while lights flashed to suggest changing flight conditions. Tom Cruise, Anthony Edwards, Val Kilmer, and the rest were performing in those close-up shots, not flying. The physical memory of the real backseat flights gave them the correct physiological responses to simulate. The hangar gave the camera access that the actual cockpit never could. The aerial exterior footage used real Navy pilots, including Scott Allman, who flew the Miramar Tower buzz sequence 9 times and later became a NASA astronaut. Allman also provided the hand visible in the frame when Maverick flips off the opposing pilot during the inverted scene. One actor tried every possible way to avoid being in this film and ended up delivering one of its most iconic performances. Val Kilmer tried to fail his own audition. Val Kilmer did not want to be in Top Gun. The project did not interest him, and the script appeared to celebrate a philosophy about military action that conflicted with Kilmer's personal views on war and geopolitics. The problem was a 3-picture contract with Paramount. When the studio requested an audition for Iceman, Declining was not legally available. Kilmer arrived for the audition wearing oversized green Australian shorts and delivered the material with minimal energy and maximum disengagement, a performance designed specifically to communicate that this was not the right casting choice. Paramount cast him anyway. On set, Kilmer channeled the ambivalence into Iceman in ways that strengthened the character considerably. The natural distance Kilmer maintained from Tom Cruise kept the rivalry sharp in both directions. Cast members informally divided into two camps: the Iceman and Sliders side versus the Maverick and Goose side. That division was visible on screen because it was real. With very little written about Iceman beyond ace pilot and perfect rival, Kilmer constructed a complete backstory independently, building a character around relentless self-discipline and a need for precision that the script never provided. The jaw clenches, the unblinking, confrontational stare. Those were Kilmer's specific inventions, not script directions. By the time filming concluded, the film had won Kilmer over completely. Tony Scott's visual ambition and the quality of the production changed his assessment. When Top Gun Maverick entered development decades later, Kilmer actively campaigned for his return rather than waiting for an invitation. The actor who tried to eliminate himself from the franchise helped define it permanently. 5 artists refused the theme song before Kenny Loggins took it. Danger Zone was not written for Kenny Loggins. The track circulated through the music industry before it found its performer, and the list of artists who passed on it reads like a catalog of 1980s rock. Jefferson Starship declined over concerns that recording a track for a film celebrating military aviation conflicted with the band's political positions. Toto became involved in legal disagreements with the production before the collaboration could proceed. Bryan Adams refused, reportedly concerned that the project presented warfare as entertainment. Corey Hart preferred performing original material rather than recording songs for film soundtracks. REO Speedwagon's Kevin Cronin auditioned the melody and found the upper register too uncomfortable for his voice. Loggins was already involved with the production, having agreed to record Playing with the Boys for the beach volleyball sequence when the production approached him about the main theme. Danger Zone was still available. Loggins took the opportunity and recorded the session quickly. The resulting track, blocked from the #1 chart position only by Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, became one of the defining rock recordings of the decade and has appeared in popular culture continuously in the 40 years since. The ballad Take My Breath Away had its own internal friction. Giorgio Moroder offered it to Berlin alongside Danger Zone, hoping the band would select the rock track. Vocalist Terry Nunn wanted the ballad. Bassist John Crawford resisted, believing it contradicted the band's identity. The label overruled Crawford. Nunn recorded it. Take My Breath Away reached #1 in the United States and abroad, and won both an Academy Award and a Golden Globe. The love scene was filmed with the wrong hair color. Months later, Take My Breath Away plays over a blue-lit silhouette sequence and an elevator conversation that feels like the emotional center of the Maverick and Charlie romance. Neither scene existed in the original cut of the film. Test screenings in New York and Los Angeles produced generally positive responses, but an important exhibitor preview in Chicago generated feedback requesting a stronger romantic through-line. The existing connection between Maverick and Charlie played through classroom interactions and brief conversations without a dedicated romantic set piece that audiences wanted. The filmmakers scheduled reshoots months after the original production had wrapped. Tom Cruise was in Chicago working on The Color of Money under Martin Scorsese. Kelly McGillis had moved to another production and dyed her hair from blonde to dark brown. The hair colors did not match the original footage. Tony Scott flew to Chicago specifically to ask Scorsese for one day of Cruise's time. Scorsese agreed. McGillis wore a baseball cap in the elevator scene to conceal her darker hair. Crew members filmed Cruise with wet hair to match the flatter texture of the original shoot. Blue lighting and careful silhouette framing were deployed throughout. not purely for atmosphere but as practical solutions to mismatched continuity. Beneath the stylistic choices that feel intentional was a set of logistical problems being solved frame by frame. The combination of baseball cap, wet hair, and dramatic underexposure created one of the film's most visually striking and frequently referenced sequences from what was essentially a continuity repair operation. The volleyball scene was almost cut for being pointless. The beach volleyball sequence is among the most parodied and referenced scenes in the 1980s cinema. Bare chests, dog tags, sand, and Kenny Loggins combined to create an image that transcended the film itself and became shorthand for an entire era of action movie aesthetics. Paramount executives reviewing the footage before release saw minutes of screen time with no plot function, no mission developments, and no dialogue advancing any element of the story. At a point in the film where audiences were expecting more jets and more training sequences, the studio pushed for the volleyball scene to be removed or significantly shortened. Tony Scott refused. Scott came from a commercial directing background where the compression of meaning into visual moments was the primary skill. The volleyball sequence was built the same way a high-end advertisement is built. The shoot was timed for golden hour, the brief window around sunrise and sunset when light produces warmth and contrast that midday production cannot replicate. Between takes, assistants applied water and oil to maintain a consistent sheen in the changing light. What the scene accomplished narratively was nothing. It placed the rivalry between Maverick and Iceman in a purely physical context, stripped of rank, call signs, and cockpit equipment. Two men competing in a space where neither had a technical advantage. The dynamic between them became visible in a way that flight sequences could not produce. The scene stayed. The decades of parody and cultural reference that followed validated the decision more conclusively than any internal studio argument could have. The single darkest fact about the entire production involves footage that cost a man his life and was never fully explained. A man died filming one scene, and his body was never found. Art Skoll was 53 years old and one of the most accomplished aerial cinematographers in Hollywood history when Top Gun hired him to film the flat spin sequence. Skoll had won national aerobatic championships. He had performed at air shows across the country for decades. His film credits included The Right Stuff, Blue Thunder, Indiana Jones, and The Temple of Doom, and The Great Waldo Pepper. If the job required a camera-equipped aircraft to enter a controlled flat spin above the Pacific Ocean while filming the maneuver from inside the cockpit, Art Skoll was the correct choice by any professional measure. On September 16, 1985, off the coast near Carlsbad, California, Scholl took his Pitts S-2 biplane aloft with cameras mounted to capture the spin. Observers on the ground and in other aircraft tracked the flight by radio. Scholl entered the spin at approximately 4,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, Scholl radioed that he had a problem. At 1,500 feet, he reported having a real problem. Moments later, the aircraft impacted the Pacific Ocean. Neither the plane nor Art Skoll was ever recovered. The cause of the crash was never definitively determined. Investigators considered the possibility that the additional weight of the camera equipment had altered the aircraft's balance in ways that affected the recovery from the spin. Other possibilities included equipment failure and spatial disorientation. No conclusion was officially established. The final sequence in Top Gun, after Maverick and Goose eject from their spinning aircraft, carries a simple dedication in the credits honoring Art Skoll's memory. The breathtaking aerial imagery in the completed film exists because of someone who went up to get one shot and did not come back. The Pentagon co-wrote the movie, and nobody called it propaganda. From the earliest stages of development, Top Gun had a formal cooperative relationship with the United States Department of Defense. The Navy provided jets, carriers, pilots, and facilities. In exchange, the Pentagon received the right to review and modify the screenplay before filming began. The military used that right substantively. A sequence showing a fiery crash on a carrier deck was changed to a training accident under less dramatic circumstances, reducing the impression that carrier operations carried lethal risk. The original love interest for Maverick was written as an enlisted service member, which would have depicted an active fraternization violation. The Pentagon requested the change to a civilian instructor, and the character became Charlie. The opening dogfight was moved from Cuban airspace to international waters, removing any specific geopolitical association from the inciting combat action. The Navy set up information tables in the theater lobbies on the opening weekend. As audiences filed out of the exits with jet noise still ringing and Maverick still visible in the imagination, military recruiters were positioned to offer aviation career literature and direct conversation. The effect on recruitment was significant. One documented assessment credited Top Gun with a 500% increase in aviation program applications in the period following release. Lieutenant Commander Laura Marlowe, who supervised recruiting across portions of Arizona and San Diego at the time, later stated that approximately 90% of new aviation applicants in her area had seen the film. A Department of Defense database subsequently credited Top Gun with substantially rehabilitating the military's public image in the post-Vietnam era. The film was not officially commissioned as a recruitment tool. It functioned as one anyway, with a level of effectiveness that no purpose-built recruitment campaign has matched before or since. Who would have thought that one of Hollywood's coolest movies was hiding this many secrets? From near disasters to last-minute decisions that changed film history, Top Gun almost looked very different. Like this video, subscribe, and come back for more untold stories behind the biggest movies ever made.